Hi folks, Dave, the Honest Audiophile. This is the Tangzu X HBB Woo Heyday Edition, and these are my Honest Audiophile impressions. I want to thank Linsoul Audio for providing the Tangzu X HBB Woo Heyday Edition for a review. Do greatly appreciate it. Linsoul Audio, you rock. Okay, so the Tangzu X HBB Woo Heyday Edition. This is a collaboration between Tangzu and HBB, or Bad Guy Good Audio Reviews. It is also a redesign of the Zetian Woo, which I reviewed a while back on the channel. It has a upgraded version of the 14.5mm planar driver from the Zetian Woo, and it also has 16 ohms of impedance, 100 decibels of sensitivity, along with a frequency range of 20 Hz to 20 kHz. It will also set you back $200 from your bank account when you order it from Linsoul Audio. The Tangzu X HBB Woo Heyday Edition comes in this artistic box. You get some specs on the back, a little bit of branding on the sides. Let's not open it. On the inside, you get some accessories like tips, foam, base, and balanced. Oh, foam. Comes with foam? Let's take a look at those foam tips, shall we? Let's see here. Oh, that's not foam. That's silicone. I didn't get foam tips. That was a bummer. All right, but you do get these base tips and balance tips, and they do exactly as they claim. Base adds a little bit more base, and balance keeps things a little more even keeled. You also get this very large carrying case, nicely built. It's black, says Tangzu on it. Won't fit in a pocket, that's for sure. It's got a big old pocket up top here, and then it's got these little compartments that you put your shells in, and then you wrap the cable around it. It's a nice case, a little bit big, but it'll do its job. And then you get the Heyday. So the Heyday came with these black tips pre-installed, and those are actually the tips that I ended up using. The other tips that came on the tray just didn't really work for me. I wasn't able to get a good fit, a good seal, and things just weren't very comfortable. I found that these pre-installed tips were more comfortable, and they fit my ears and gave me a better seal. So I went with these silicone tips instead. The Heyday itself is well built. It's made of aluminum, and they're chunky, and they're heavy, and they have a little bit of a wing, very, very small wing. And then they also have a very, very short nozzle with a minimal angle. Love the look of them. It's kind of cool. You got this little bit of design on the faceplate. It's kind of hard to see on camera. They are fingerprint magnets, so you do need to be aware of that. Overall, hefty, but well built. How are they comfort-wise? Putting them in the ears, they're not very comfortable. Not for me. Very shallow fit. Have to really wiggle them around to get them in place. That wing on them just doesn't fit me properly. It just doesn't hold them in place. And then the 2-pin connection, this metal connection on the cable itself, really kind of pushes right here on my ear. And it's just not very comfortable. I find that the cable actually is very heavy itself. It's got a metal split. Cinch is nice. It stays right in place. I have no issues there. And then it terminates into this extremely large connection. That's like over-ear headphone size for a 1/4-inch adapter. It's just very, very big and heavy. It does detach, so you can get different terminations. You can get a 4.4 connection or a 3.5 connection. And it's nicely built. It's just too large for an IEM. You do have to be careful when you're lining them up, as there's a little groove that they go into when you're sliding the two pieces together. But overall, that's just too big. And it just adds to the weight and pulls on the cable. It's a very nicely built cable. I love the color of it, but unfortunately it just hurts right here. And it's just a heavy cable overall. So the build of the Heyday is nice. The design of it not so good, and the comfort is atrocious. And I find that foam tips actually do help a little bit. So when I put these Dekoni tips on, since there were no stock foam tips provided, the Dekoni tips help slightly with fit. When I put them in with the Dekoni tip, it protrudes the shell out just a little bit so that this 2-pin connection doesn't push on that top part of my ear as bad. Also, it makes them a little more sturdy and stable so they don't flop around as much. Because what would happen with a silicone tip is it would pull down and it would add a little bit of pressure on the bottom part of my ear as well. And I was finding that I was only able to use the stock silicone tips for about 15 minutes before they were really painful for me. And part of that also is because of the very minimalistic tension that the ear hooks have on the cable. And these IEMs are extremely heavy. The Heyday is extremely heavy. And so the lackluster tension in the ear hook really doesn't help the weight. And so when they were in my ears, they were just pulling. And I always had to connect the cable around my glasses. I would have to run it around behind my glasses, and then that would cause problems for the fit of my glasses. And so it's just a very awkward, uncomfortable fit for me using stock tips. Foam tips helped a little bit. I was able to listen for about 30 minutes before they become discomfortable, or uncomfortable. Discomfortable is not a word. Uncomfortable. But it just was a very frustrating fit for me overall. But we're going to use silicone tips to do the sonic impressions of the Heyday. Why? Because foam tips weren't in the box, and so we're going to review them as stock. The Heyday is not the easiest IEM to drive. It's not the hardest, but it is a planar IEM, and those tend to be a little bit picky when it comes to a source. I found that dongles were able to drive the Heyday, but weren't the best. Dongles that had a little bit more oomph, a little bit more power, HBB FC4, Audio Engine DAC 3, NextDrive Spectra X, Heyday XO, things like that, were able to drive it fairly well. I found that DAPs did a little bit better. I really enjoyed it on the HBB R5 Gen 2, especially in Class A mode. And then desktops, I found the Aune X1S GT and the Audeze Deckard were my preferred on desktop. The Heyday is kind of picky when it comes to source presentation. I found that if it was a little bit colder, a little bit more neutral and analytical leaning sound, that the Heyday wasn't very pleasurable to listen to. It was a little bit sharp and intense in the uppers and lacked a lot of body weight. Whereas a little bit warmer of a source added in some note weight and body and tamed the upper mids a little bit, and it was a little bit more pleasurable to listen to. So I preferred it on warmer sources. Before we get into the actual sonic impressions of the Tangzu X HBB Woo Heyday Edition, I would like to thank my supporters through Patreon and YouTube memberships. Thank you very much for all that you provide to the channel. It is much appreciated. I know that in these times and days in the world, it's not the easiest when it comes to finances. And so any type of sacrifice that you make on a daily or monthly basis to give back to the channel is much appreciated. So thank you very much. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out the links down below. You can either support it through one-time gifts or through a monthly support. There's PayPal and Venmo, Patreon, and YouTube memberships. All funding goes back into the channel to produce videos, drink coffee while doing reviews, and also to purchase gear to review or use as comparison. So if you're interested, check out the links down below. Also, while you're down there, don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video. And if you haven't already, hit that subscription button and notification bell. That way you'll know when the next Honest Audiophile video is uploaded. Tangzu HBB Woo Heyday Edition. How do they sound? So the Heyday has a nice bass to it. It has a good amount of detail and resolution, nice tonality, and it extends nicely into the sub bass. You get some rumble and grumble when called upon, and it has okay impact and slam, but it lacks a little bit of authority, and it's a little bit light on note weight and density. For something called the Heyday, I would have thought it would have really brought it and was Heyday, it would have been a little bit more powerful and impactful, but I just find that the Heyday is just a little bit more of a detailed and resolution type of bass instead of a more power and thumper and authoritative. I would expect more with something named the Heyday. The mids also have lighter note weight and density, and they sound a little bit thin. They're a little bit elevated in the upper mids, but not too bad. They do at times have a little bit of sibilance and a little bit of aggression, especially depending on the source. As mentioned, if it's a more neutral and analytical type of source, that may come out a little bit more. A little bit warmer of a source will add in a little bit of body weight and density to things. Overall, the tonality is good. With the mids, it's just a little bit thin. Detail retrieval and resolution is very good. Going into the treble, lower treble is a little bit more elevated than the rest of the treble. So the lower treble has a little bit more of excitement. And then as it goes through the treble, it'll kind of mellow out and it becomes a little bit more laid back, and it's not as exciting as it is in the lowers. And it kind of goes a little bit onto the lackadaisical side. It doesn't go boring, but it just kind of is a little too easy going. I wish I had a little bit more to it. But overall, the tonality is good and the detail retrieval and resolution is very good. So I like the sound of the Heyday for the most part. When I can get a good seal and I get it on the right source, the Heyday has a more engaging, a laid back type of sound signature that is pleasing and doesn't really offend, except for those occasional times when the sibilance comes out. But other than that, I like the Heyday. Soundstage of the Heyday is good. It has nice width to it, does a good job of portraying differences in stage widths, and it has nice depth. I find that you can look into a stage, and with the tracking capabilities of the Heyday, it's an interesting immersive type of sound. It isn't the most laser perfect presented imaging, but it's in a very tight knit neighborhood. It's right in there type of sound. You can break down a stage very well with the Heyday. Tonality is good. Don't have any issues there. Everything sounds accurate and true. Detail retrieval is very good. Resolution is very good. Overall, Heyday is a good sound. I just wish I had a little bit more excitement, especially in the top end, and that it had a little bit more authority in note weight and density, and just a little bit more power to things. How does the Heyday compare to a couple other planar IEMs? Well, first you have to compare it to the original. And the Zetian has more bass, a lot more bass, a lot more impact. It's a lot more body weight to things, but it's not as defined and refined. It's not as detailed and resolving or as well controlled. The Heyday does a lot better in that. In the mids, the Zetian has better body weight and note weight, and it's just a little bit more pleasurable and sounds a little more natural when it comes to the vocals and to the instruments. They just sound a little bit more natural and true, but it is more elevated. It's a little bit more forward and does have more aggression. The treble is a more intense sound signature at times. It's a little more peaky. Soundstage wise, it's a little bit wider, but it's not as good with depth, layering, and detail retrieval and resolution is not as good on the Zetian as it is with the Heyday. Overall, the Heyday is a vast improvement over the original, and I would listen to the Heyday over the original. How does the Heyday compare to the Timeless from 7 Hertz? Now, the 7 Hertz Timeless is interesting because of the build and the design. It's got this circular shape, but it has a little bit longer of a nozzle. And believe it or not, I find the 7 Hertz Timeless to be more comfortable. It doesn't hurt my ears. As oddly shaped as they are, they fit better. I get a better seal and better comfort with the Timeless. Also, overall, I prefer the sound signature of the Timeless. I find that the Timeless has better bass. It has a more fullness to the note weight and density. Overall, it has more authority. The mids are more natural and accurate, have better tone and timbre. And the treble is more airy and extended. And overall, to me, the Timeless has a more natural and accurate presentation. Detail, retrieval, and resolution are better on the Heyday. Soundstage, depth, and layering are better on the Timeless. And the overall, I would take the Timeless over both of the Tangzus. I like the Heyday, prefer it over the original, but it's not really for me. It's been Dave, the Honest Audiophile. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you on the next video. Speaking of next video, somewhere on the screen, subscription links and notification bells. If you haven't already, please check those off. Don't forget to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down to the video, and also check out the links down below. There's all kinds of information down there regarding how you can contact channel, follow channel, support the channel. All that kind of stuff is listed down below, along with gear rankings and music recommendations and all kinds of other things down there. So check out those links down below. And finally, don't forget to enjoy the music, and that honesty is the best policy.